reconvene from our closed session. We need to certify that, please, so we need a motion to do that.
Mr. Mayor, I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed session to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered by council.
Okay. Your second?
Second.
All right, motion made, second, that we certify our closed session. Any comments, any concerns? Shouldn't be, since it was a closed session. Ms. Kim?
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett. Aye. Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Fye.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting. Aye. Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Next item on our agenda is a special presentation dealing with the fire department ladder truck replacement borrowing. Someone from Davenport has a presentation for us. Welcome, sir.
Cal's here for us, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, it is nice to see you this evening as always. Again, Kyle Laux with Davenport. We always appreciate being here. So, Mr. Mayor, we have up on the screen here a presentation all tied into financing a fire truck. I'm sure there's a more technical term for it than that, but the ladder truck specifically that's in your budget, in your capital program. And so the time really has come by virtue of your staff to move forward with the financing for that, and really here to talk about that, the process, et cetera. On page number 1, just in terms of a little bit of background, not much, but the city has, and I think members of council, you understand this, and for the public, has a very long track record at this point of excellent financial stewardship. So we have excellent credit ratings. We have a AAA credit rating from Standard & Poor's, which is the highest we can have, and a AA2 from Moody's. So everything we're talking about this evening is set up purposely to make sure we can continue to demonstrate to the rating agencies that we'll be in as good a shape in the future as we've done in the past. And those credit ratings mean that we're able to borrow at the most cost-effective rates in the market and thus save the taxpayer money. So I'll say that on the front end, just so everything we're talking about takes that into consideration, meaning making sure we can maintain, if not maybe even enhance those credit ratings. So again, roughly $2 million is the amount we're talking about in terms of the size of the financing of the borrowing. Again, all planned within your budget, so nothing new or surprising in that way. Planned for long in advance. The city has a very good track record of, call it, measuring twice and cutting once when it comes to actually doing the financing. And so what you're seeing here tonight is really the result of planning during the early, kind of colder months of the year as your budget process was being developed, obviously budget adopted, and now here to sort of take the next step and actually go out and obtain that financing. So we'll talk about that on page 2, goals and objectives. We'll do a little bit of background, but not too much. Always making sure that we can maintain those ratings that are so critical to the city and the financial policy guidelines. We'll show you that visually in a couple pages and just demonstrate how the city maintains compliance with its policies with this financing incorporated. Our existing debt here on page number 3, we call this the tax-supported debt of the city. What that means is that's the debt that's paid from our general tax revenues, not our sewer enterprise fund. That's separate and fully self-supporting, so it's purposely not counted here. What you see is a total of about $36 million. All of the debt that's outstanding right now is fixed rate and paid just like a mortgage. So as you hear and think about maybe in the news, interest rates and they're fluctuating, our existing debt is fixed rate. It does not move until such time as we as a city maybe we want to go change something and refinance in the future. It also is paid in set increments. So again, just like a mortgage, each and every year we're paying that principal down, which creates the capacity to take on new projects as you're doing right now. So the way we would go about obtaining the financing for this fire truck, we call it a direct bank loan. It's something the city's done many times in the past with great success. It basically means that we, working on your behalf, with your staff and bond counsel and Sam Anderson will go out and competitively bid this to local banks, to national banks, regional banks. Everybody gets the same shake at it. Everybody gets to see the same thing and put it in a competitive proposal. So that's what we call a direct bank loan. By virtue of doing that, we're able to bring back to you over the course of about the next 30 days the results of that. So at your July meeting, we'll have the results that you can take action on. We'll talk about that schedule here in the next couple pages. One of the things we like here, just a couple of advantages of a direct bank loan, but importantly, number 6, bank loans tend to have very flexible prepayment provisions. And so that's important when we think about the lifespan of any particular loan. Over the years, the city's been able to take advantage of refinancing for lower interest rates. We don't see that in the current situation, but you take yourself out 2, 5, 10 years, we'll likely be in a position, although no guarantee, but likely be in a position we could be looking at even a refinancing for savings purposes. So we like the ability that bank loans typically have to have very flexible prepayment provisions, and gives us as a city, gives you as a council a lot of options as you think not just about next year, but what does the future look like in terms of managing the various loans. On page number 6, just give you a little bit of a visual in terms of interest rates. You've probably seen a lot of this in the news, but want to give you some perspective. What this page is showing is tax-exempt borrowing rates. So we as a city, when we go finance governmental projects, whether it's a school, a fire station, a fire truck, we're able to do that at a tax-exempt interest rate. We basically get a lower interest rate by virtue of that. So that's what this chart is showing. It's a long-term average and index. Left-hand side of the page shows you all the way back to 1980, so basically the last 40, 42 years, 43 years. And what you see is that currently, when you compare yourself to that kind of perspective, we're in a very favorable borrowing environment. You take your eye to the graph on the right-hand side, in terms of what's transpired over the last year or two, certainly we're higher than we were during the all-time lows of the kind of immediate post-pandemic crisis time period. But that was very abnormal, and it was never sort of reasonable to expect, nor do we want it to be in a situation where rates were that low for that long. And so just from a perspective, long-term borrowing rates still very favorable. The other corollary to that isn't necessarily in this presentation, but is a positive, is your ability as a city to actually earn some interest on the dollars you have in the bank is much, much greater than it was the last couple of years. So we've talked about that obviously with manager and staff, whereby your fund balance and those financial policies you have on the fund balance side is very important to making sure we can maintain our credit ratings. And given that these short-term rates are higher, you can actually earn some dollars of a fairly material amount when you look at the cash balances that are deposited with banks, et cetera. So we just offer that perspective in terms of how we think about things a little globally and holistically. So we'll show you a couple pages here of just what we call planning estimates. Basically everything you've seen here was incorporated in your budget. So we'll just give you a little bit of that, and then we'll bring you back the actual results in about 30 days. But we're assuming a $2 million cost. We've planned at a 4.5% interest rate. That should be about on the market. A couple of years ago, that was certainly well above the market, but things have evolved. So we should be somewhere in around that range. We'll know that answer by the time we come back to you. A repayment term of 15 years, so the entire loan would be paid off over that 15-year time period. We're not experts in necessarily rolling stock of a fire nature. We understand these types of projects or trucks, if you will, have a very long useful life. So to repay that over 15 years is A, reasonable, and B, arguably on the conservative side. Mentioned on the front end, some of our financial policies. Just want to show you visually here how we continue to comply with two of the most important financial policies. On the left-hand side, debt service to expenditures. That's a cash flow kind of measurement metric. We have, as a city, a self-imposed, which is a good thing, policy that says we don't want that ratio to go anything above 10%. That means we don't want more than 10 pennies out of every dollar in the budget going to make a debt service payment. And you can see there, we're hovering in and around 9. No surprise, certainly we've made some major investments over the last couple years. On the right-hand side is our debt versus assessed value. That's just really a measurement of our total tax base relative to the amount of debt outstanding. We have a policy to be at no more than 3%. We're hovering right now at 2%. As your assessed value goes up, that ratio looks even stronger. As construction goes on next door and your assessed value grows that way, that makes that ratio look stronger. So all of these various metrics, A, we're in compliance with them, and B, we would expect they're going to be stronger in the future given all the activity going on in the city. So in terms of our next steps, where we'll go from here with council's kind of collective blessing, it's June 12th. What we really do is as early as tomorrow, we've kind of had this teed up, but wanted to bring it before you. We'll have an RFP out to the banks basically tomorrow, next day, so they can start looking at that, going through their process, going through that competitive bidding process, basically over the balance of the month. So that by the time we get to the 29th of June, those responses will come into us. We'll share them with Randy, with Tanya, with Tara, everybody, kind of work up our stuff, working with your legal counsel, and be in a position to be back to you as a council on July 10th to present all this information and allow you to take action to move forward. There will also be a series of public hearings that are required just by virtue of the Public Finance Act. Sands Anderson, your longtime bond counsel, will help us kind of get all that teed up. So you may see those ads in the paper over the course of the next month. Just a requirement of the way that we borrow money in Virginia. And so that will all be done over the course of the next month. So really from council's perspective, we'll be working through all of this. Look forward to seeing you again, barring any questions, anything that we can explain further at your July 10th meeting. Again, with all the results and known interest rates, prepayment provisions, et cetera, to talk in more detail that you could then take some action on. The idea then is we'd be able to close basically by the end of July, have the funds in hand such that when that truck is delivered, the dollars are there. We're not having to come out of our own sort of reserves to make that payment. And so with that, I will pause. Mayor, members of council, any questions that you have, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any additional questions for Kyle? We discussed this on July the 10th. We've already established the need for this ladder truck. Now we've seen the financing and the schedule for the financing, and when we make that final decision, we have established the need. But if you don't have questions of Kyle, we'll just follow the calendar and move forward.
I have one question.
Sure.
Okay. As you know, and you already said it, that this is the second of two fairly large things that we're financing right now in the recent past. Okay. Do you see that with this addition of the $2 million, any impact on our credit rating?
I don't. I'll tell you why. So there's two reasons. One is this chart here, whereby we can demonstrate to the rating agencies that we are very much in compliance with our self-imposed policies. And those policy levels are levels that they've seen, and they're in line with the stuff that they like to see. So that's the first reason why. The second reason is your budget, to the credit of council and everyone, is structurally balanced. And so we can also demonstrate to the rating agencies and the lenders that we proactively thought about borrowing these dollars and we built it into our budget. And thus we have what we call the debt affordability, meaning we already put the dollars in the budget, we know it's coming, and we have the debt capacity, which means we can show that we comply with the various policies.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Kyle? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here, Kyle.
Thank you. Good to see you as always.
We'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on to our audience for visitors. If there's anyone in our audience who would like to address council on any issue at this time, we'd be delighted to hear from you. I don't see anybody, so we'll move on to approval of our minutes, the regular session, May 22nd, 2023.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded to approve our minutes, regular session, May 22nd, 2023. Ms. Kim?
Councilman Hux,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett.
So if I watch the meeting online, can I go ahead and, okay, then aye, thank you.
Councilwoman Bunting.
Aye.
Councilman Fye.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thanks, Kim. Let's move on to old business. Ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for sale of public property located in the middle of Legacy Community. Another item that this council has discussed thoroughly. Randy?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you may recall, beginning back in April, council authorized us to move forward on your behalf to solicit bids for this piece of property, which is approximately, slightly less than 3/4 of an acre, and it is inside the otherwise larger footprint of the legacy development. We had a public hearing to receive those sealed bids on May 8th. We had one bidder. The legacy developer was that bidder. They offered $100,000 with a couple of contingencies. Council considered that, and Mr. Moore took the lead in putting together the contract. I'll let him speak to it, but I would simply say before he does that we have been, and particularly Wayne, in close discussions with them, and if you're ready to move forward, I think on the rest of everybody's position, including the developer, they are also ready to move forward on this document as presented this evening. I'll let Wayne explain.
Wayne?
As you recall, we made sort of a counteroffer back to them on the conditions that we wanted. Those conditions were accepted. They have until the end of November to actually close and complete the purchase, which would give them an opportunity to take any other steps that they need, such as their master plan and that type of thing. If the whole deal falls through, then they forfeit the $5,000 deposit that they've made. They've also, in the contract, agreed to reimburse the city for all the advertising expenses, which is part of the transaction. And so I see no reason that we would not go forward based on all the discussions we've had, and I believe that the contract set that forward for us.
Thank you, Wayne. I think Wayne has just told us exactly what we talked about it, I think at our last meeting, and the items, how we wanted that thing to work, and he's done a good job getting it done. Do you want to say something, Kerry?
Oh, no, sir, I was just going to make
Okay.
a motion.
Okay, I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Mr. Mayor, I propose an ordinance of the city of Poquoson, Virginia, granting the purchase of publicly owned property of unimproved .77 acres located in the middle of legacy development.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made, and second, that we adopt the ordinance. Any other concerns, questions, comments? If not, Ms. Kim?
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting.
Aye.
Councilman Fye.
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thanks, Kim. Let's move on to new business. The first item is a resolution making appointments to the school board. Someone have a motion and a name to insert.
Mr. Mayor, I propose a resolution appointing the following persons to the school board. For Central is Shannon Martin, and at large, Mr. Michael DeBose. Both terms expire 30 June 2026.
Second.
All right, motion made and second that we adopt the resolution with those names inserted. Comments, questions? If not, Ms. Kim?
Councilwoman Bunting.
Aye.
Councilman Fye.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel. Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Thanks, Kim. Item 2 on the new business, resolution making an appointment to the Virginia Alcohol Safety Action Program Policy Board. I think someone had some names.
Mr. Mayor, I propose a resolution appointing Lieutenant Ty Farrington to the Virginia Alcohol Safety Action Program Policy Board, and his term will expire on 30 June 2026.
Second.
All right, motion made second, we adopt the resolution with Ty Farrington's name inserted. Any comments, questions, concerns about that? If not, Ms. Kim?
Councilwoman Emmett.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilman Fye,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thanks, Kim. Item 3 is a resolution making an appointment to the Colonial Behavioral Health Board. Someone have a name?
Mr. Mayor, I propose a resolution appointing Dr. Dawn M. Hyde to the Colonial Behavioral Health Board. Her term expires June 30, 2026.
Okay. Can we get a second? We're gonna move on.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion made second, we adopt the resolution with that name inserted. Any concerns, comments? If not, Ms. Kim?
Councilman Fye,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting,
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Thanks, Kim.
Prior motion, I believe you called, but you didn't call Councilwoman Bunting's name for the vote.
For the VASAP program?
Which one, Wayne? I'm sorry.
I believe on the vote for Lieutenant. Ty
Virginia Alcohol
Farrington,
Safety Action.
I believe she called, I don't believe she called you. I believe she did not. You did not call the roll correctly. I would ask that that call be made again.
Okay, sure,
I
let's do
would-
it. Let's just do another resolution in a second. Carrie, you want to do that again?
Okay, I propose a resolution appointing Lieutenant Ty Farrington to the Virginia Alcohol Safety Action Program Policy Board, with term expiring 30 June 2026.
Okay, Ms. Kim?
Councilwoman Bunting,
Aye.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Councilman Fye,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. The motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, did we finish the Colonial Health? Did we do that vote?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. You did that.
All right, let's move on to item 4, under new business, resolution making appointment to the Workforce Development Consortium.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I propose a resolution appointing Vice Mayor Carrie Freeman to the Workforce Development Consortium, term expiring June 30th of 2024.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Second.
All right, motion made and second, we adopt the resolution with the vice mayor's name inserted.
Is it 2024 or 2025? It's 2 years. 1 year? Oh, okay.
Ms. Kim?
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Abstain.
Councilwoman Emmett,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Councilman Fye,
Aye.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting,
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6 with 1 abstention.
All right, thank you, ma'am. This is item 5, a resolution making appointments to the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission.
Mr. Mayor, I propose a resolution appointing Mayor Gordon C. Helsel Jr. to the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission and J. Randall Wheeler, ex officio member. Both terms expire 31 December 2024.
Okay?
Second.
All right, I have a motion made second, we adopt the resolution with my name inserted and Randy as my partner. How about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Kim?
Councilman Hucks. Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting,
Aye.
Councilman Fye,
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All righty, item 6 is an ordinance making additional transfer for fiscal year 2023, authorize the city manager to issue a letter of intent and authorize the city manager to execute a contract to purchase a 2024 AEV Type 1X Series medic unit.
You did that in a single breath, which is, I don't think you need to get your physical. We'll just send a clip to that to
Okay,
the doctor.
good deal.
Battalion Chief Young is here representing.
Hey, John, how you doing, pal? Good, we're doing good.
Good evening to everyone. I'm just here to speak on behalf of this in case anybody has any questions with some new faces here. We have a multi-point ordinance that will result in purchasing us a new medic unit for the fire department. It should replace our oldest truck, which is a little over 20 years old now. In FY '23, capital projects. The city appropriated $175,000 towards the purchase of this vehicle. We applied for a 50-50 matching grant with the state. We were not successful. Most of the grant monies are not seeming to come to municipalities anymore. They're supporting more of the rural areas. We're starting to see a trend of. So then on May 8th of '23, council appropriated an additional $175,000 towards this purchase, bringing us up to $350,000. In the time that we've started this project, the cost of the ambulance has increased due to price increases across the board. The new total is $393,247. So it requires an additional $43,247 over the appropriation. Finance has said that that is available in undesignated projects in the capital projects fund. The last two vehicles that we purchased from this company, we've been very, very happy with their craftsmanship. When we do have issues, they have an agreement with a vendor right in York County that we can take it to. And the one time we had an issue that they couldn't fix, AEV came to us, picked up the vehicle, took it back to Carolina, and took care of everything. They've really stood behind their products, and we can purchase with them through the HGAC contract, so we're very happy to stick with them. So the ordinance, also completion of this project is going to finally finish a multi-year project that we started to exceed the newest federal patient restraint guidelines. So this truck will ensure that all 4 of our ambulances now will have the automated power load system with the power stretcher, which is going to bring us back into compatibility with all of our surrounding jurisdictions. So the purpose of the ordinance, we're going to ask for a transfer within the capital projects fund of $43,247 to complete the purchase. Authorize the city manager to immediately issue a letter of intent to AEV so that we can lock in that pricing and not see any further increases. And then on July 1st, on or after July 1st of '23, issue into a contract to purchase this 2024 Type 1 ambulance from AEV. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
How long before you get it, John?
They are currently estimating that we should see delivery in calendar year '24. And they're not willing to go much more detailed than that.
Well, nobody knows, the need for these units more than you guys do. You operate them, you run them, and you do it very professionally. Two things, I guess one of the things that, we're responsible for is the safety of our people in our community, number one. And so, I don't think that this council has any questions regarding any dollars that we need to appropriate to make sure that we've got the very best that we can get. And I think that's what you've done. So I appreciate that. Any other comments? Okay, if not, there's an ordinance prepared, right?
Mr. Mayor, I propose an ordinance making additional transfers for fiscal year 2023, authorizing the city manager to issue a letter of intent and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract to purchase a 2024 AEV Type 1 X Series medic unit.
Okay,
I can do that near as good as the mayor.
you did great. Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. I think I heard a second, David. Sir. Okay, Ms. Kim?
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting?
Aye.
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Kim. John, thank you so much. Michael, thank you. And we appreciate the information that you, all right. Fire Chief. We appreciate this, the update on your deputy chief. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to item 7, an ordinance making an additional transfer in fiscal year 2023 within the capital projects fund for Two Tree Park. This is an item that I think I spoke with everybody on council about. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Parks and Recreation Advisory Board provided City Council with an update on the community input and improvement plan on this park at the April 10th, 2023 work session. The advisory board took a large list of the community wants and determined that a phased-in approach for the park would be the best option to provide immediate benefits to the community and allows additional time to research for future plans. So the first phase includes a parking lot, bike racks, picnic shelter, walking trail, and signage. So in order to begin this first phase, we are requesting City Council to appropriate $70,000 from the undesignated projects account in the Capital Projects Fund. This money will allow for staff to enter into a contract to construct a parking lot, which is estimated to cost about $35,000, and provide the signage for the park. Once the parking lot is complete, staff will focus on the other items included in the first phase plan. Attached is an appropriation for City Council's consideration to transfer $70,000 in fiscal year 2023 within the Capital Projects Fund for the two-tree park. And I would be happy to answer any questions. Dave Hallis is also here.
Any questions, Keith?
Yeah, the $35,000 is going toward the signs in the parking lot. Will the other $35,000 of the 70 be enough to cover items like the shelter and the trail and stuff?
We believe so, but it might need some additional funds.
I would, not to contradict that, but we believe so, but we've not bid any of the rest of that stuff out.
Okay.
So I did want to say, this is sort of our best guess, and we don't guess, but it truly is a guess. We'll refine this estimate as we go forward. Once we get the parking lot in, then the next phase, and he's already begun working on is, the siting of the shelter. And when we know where it's going to be, then we know how to connect it with a walking path of some kind. So there'll be a paved surface from the lot to the shelter. And I think it'll definitely take us there. And depending upon how we construct that path, we're going to be close. We also are working already on the landscaping plan out front, the parking area, the bike rack that will go along with it, as well as the signage. So what we're asking is the money to begin to implement that plan, and for the small things, to be able to go and continue to do it without having to come back and asking for $250 for a bike rack, $150 for a sign, that type of thing. We will report back to you
Your
regularly.
best guess is good. All right, any other questions?
Right.
Thank you, ma'am. Great job. Keith, would you like to make that motion?
Oh, sure. Mr. Mayor, I propose an ordinance making an additional transfer in fiscal year 2023 within capital improvement funds for Two Tree Park.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made, second, we adopt the ordinance. Any concerns, comments? Okay, Ms. Kim?
Councilwoman Bunting?
Aye.
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thank you, ma'am. So on to item 8 is an ordinance updating Chapter 24, Article 3, Division 2, Section 74-113, 74-115, and 74116, relating to the income limits and amount of exemptions and deferrals. Randy?
Mr. Mayor, our Commissioner of the Revenue, Joe Kashmili, is here. He certainly can speak to this. I also wanted to just let you know that this was something that was specifically contemplated in your budget, including the fiscal impacts of this was also forecast in your budget. Joe, you want to come and lead us through it?
Good evening, Mayor.
Hey, Joe.
Hey. Basically, what we're doing is just increasing the amount of exemption for tax exemption from $2,200 to $2,500. That's the main reason this is in here. The sliding scale of exemptions is has limits of 25, 50, 75, and 100% is on that scale, and that is tied to the Consumer Price Index, which we voted on in 2011 to do that. So that's just a matter of course. That's also in here as well, but I just wanted to mention that that's something that we do every year. The reason for this increase is we haven't looked at it in quite some time. As you all know, the inflation rate was higher than what we've seen in the last 10 years or so, year-over-year inflation rate. And so this ordinance change was basically proposed to address that. And if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to.
Is it 25,
25.
is 100%?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be the maximum that any household could defer or be exempted
Okay.
from.
That's a great program, by the way. Any questions of Joe? Huh? Don't see any. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I propose an ordinance amending Chapter 74, Article 3, Division 2, Section 74-113, eligibility generally, Section 74-115, amount of exemption, and Section 74-116, amount of deferral of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Poquoson.
Well done. Do we have a second? Second. All right, we have a motion made second, we adopt the ordinance. Any other questions or concerns, any comments? If not, Ms. Kim, please.
Councilwoman Bunting? Aye. Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All righty, thanks, Kim. Item 9 is an ordinance for fiscal year 2023 for general fund, Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services, law enforcement equipment grant funding. Chief, good to see you.
Good to see you, Mayor, council members, welcome to our new council members. First time I get to see you guys. Last year in the Virginia General Assembly, there was allocation of the federal ARPA funding, and of the allotment sent to the Commonwealth of Virginia, the legislature sent $75 million to the Department of Criminal Justice Services, specifically to be allocated to localities for the acquisition of law enforcement equipment and technology. And the police department made application through that program for the maximum amount that we were eligible for of $162,000. That'll allow us to acquire 2 fully equipped patrol vehicles, some technology and equipment that'll enhance our abilities in investigations, and also some additional equipment to enhance the daily operations of the Uniform Patrol Division. On May the 11th, we were notified that our application was approved for the full amount of $162,000. There is no match, and so before you tonight is an ordinance for consideration authorizing the city manager to accept the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services Law Enforcement Equipment Grant and to appropriate the grant funds in the Capital Projects Fund for fiscal year 2023.
Congratulations on receiving the grant. We ought to do this one just as fast as we can.
Don't let us slip away.
Any questions of the chief?
Will you be maintaining is this replacing any vehicles, and will you maintain them, or?
This will actually increase the fleet
Right.
by 2, and that'll coincide with the SRO positions that were
Ah,
added.
excellent.
Any other questions? All righty. Ms. Kemp? Excuse me, we need a motion for the ordinance, huh?
Mr. Mayor, I propose an ordinance for fiscal year 2023 for general fund, Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services Law Enforcement Equipment Grant Fund.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded, we adopt the ordinance. Any other questions or concerns? I don't hear any, so Ms. Kim?
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting? Aye. Councilwoman Emmett?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Let's go to item 10. It's an ordinance proposing changes to the city chapter 38, article 2, section 38-31- fire prevention.
We'll let the chief do this one, sir.
The fire chief is here.
I didn't screw up, say deputy chief this time.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and not to be outdone by the police chief, I want to welcome our newest member of the city council as well. Tonight, I'm here to present a resolution in regards to our state fire prevention code. Being a new chief, I've also been to new classes, and I did learn in this class that not only is it my responsibility as the fire marshal, but with that, it's my responsibility to make sure this statewide fire prevention code is always up to date. So With that being said, I found out during the class that a lot of jurisdictions are moving to this type of resolution. As the State Fire Prevention Code changes, with this resolution, it would automatically be recognized by the city. And thought it would be a good idea to do that. That way, we're always covered, and there's never any questions about the State Fire Prevention Code. They do the updates frequently between the state, Commonwealth of Virginia and the Department of Housing, so that's where the updates come from. So, if there's any questions or concerns, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
All right, any questions of the chief regarding this ordinance that we are about to adopt? Don't see any, pal. We'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I propose an ordinance proposing changes to City Code, Chapter 38, Article 2, Section 38-31, Fire Prevention Code.
Okay?
Second.
All right, motion made second, we adopt the ordinance. Any concerns, comments, any questions? Okay, Ms. Kim?
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Fye.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel. Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to our last item. It's an ordinance making additional appropriation fiscal year 2023 for the general fund. Here she comes again.
She's hard to miss in that bright blue.
I tell you, she's on fire.
All right, so we have 3 additional revenue items to discuss for additional appropriation in the general fund for fiscal year 2023. The first is the library has received additional donations. I know we bring these periodically, but they got $5,770 since the last time I brought this to you, which was primarily from the Friends of the Library. So that's a great donation for them. The second item is, if you recall, City Council approved participation in the nationwide settlements with certain opioid distributors at the December 13th, 2021 and the February 28th, 2023 meetings. This year so far, we've received $55,444 in these settlement disbursements. The city will continue to receive these settlement disbursements for the next 17 years. This amount for this year was higher because one distributor front-loaded, so we won't get as much in future years. And we are working to determine the best use of these funds because we must use them for opioid abatement efforts. And the last item is the city received $17,414 from the monitoring fund of a class action settlement agreement, which are intended to pay for PCB sampling and/or mitigation efforts as part of compliance with that applicable law. And the community development staff are working on the best use of these funds to meet that settlement agreement requirement. So attached, you have an appropriation for City Council's consideration to appropriate the additional $78,628 in the fiscal year 2023 general fund. And I would be happy to try to answer any.
Okay, any questions?
Mayor, I just got notice, I think on Thursday, that there's been an additional opioid settlement with 3 more companies. So we will be getting another boost to this fund and an upfront boost with a long payout after that.
Great.
Sometime this year. I'm
Great.
expected early fall.
Okay, any questions? Everybody that's been here tonight has been getting money for us so far. Isn't that good? That's great. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I propose an ordinance making an additional appropriation for fiscal year 2023 in the general fund.
Okay,
Second.
motion made second, we adopt the ordinance. Kim?
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting.
Aye.
Councilman Fye.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, comments to city manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. 3 items this evening. One, I'd just like to thank Councilwoman Bunting and Councilwoman Emmett for spending considerable time with us over the last couple of weeks. We really enjoyed that. Hope that's the first of many dialogues. I was reflecting as the meeting was unfolding this evening how different it is from when I first started here 14 years and 11 days ago. At that time, we were dealing with the recession. we were going through a process of laying off employees and eliminating vacant positions and cutting about everything we could possibly cut while still managing to function. And since that time, and sitting back this evening, with your approval, making important investments on 20-year pieces of apparatus like a ladder truck and 2 more police cars, and final stage of our ambulance replacement and updating process, the seed money for Two Tree Park. I just want to note, we've come a long way together, and that lends more excitement to where we're going next also together. And lastly, each of us has kind of a bucket list of things we hope to achieve. And then you have a list on the side of things that would also be nice. And in that vein, as previously reported in a weekly report, Public Works has taken the lead on putting forward grant applications on, actually it's one for 2 things, for the state's abandoned boat removal fund. And we learned today that it has cleared all the administrative hurdles, going with the recommendation of approval to the VMRC later this month. So if we are successful, like we expect we will be, the 2 derelict boats, one on each side of Messick Point, will be our target, and by fall, they'll be up and gone. And that's all I have.
All right. Great report. And one of the reasons that we've come as far as we've come, Brandy, is because of you and your staff. In fact, that's probably the major reason. So congratulations to you and all the folks that are part of the city. Just do a magnificent job.
I want to second that.
Okay. Board of Council Directors, I'm gonna go first tonight for a change, and want to make sure that we and welcome Debbie and Angie, both of you, to the City Council. I've had actually already several phone calls saying that council made the right decision, and I think we did as well. I look forward to at least another year and a half to serve with you guys, and with Randy at the helm, we'll make some really good things happen. So I'm pleased about that. David, we would certainly be remiss if we didn't let you know that this entire city staff and this council share with you the emotional side of your father's passing. He was a really good man, and he'll be missed in this community. So our condolences to you.
Thank you, Gordon.
Had an opportunity to go to Salem and watch the boys' baseball team. They did not win the championship, but they certainly played a really good game. I think we had soccer kids out at state championships. We have some tennis folks out for state championships, and all of these kids and all that they've done have just brought not only great credit on themselves, but great credit on this community and certainly their school system. So congratulations to all of them, and if I get the time, I will make sure that each and every one of them get a letter of thanks from this council for their participation in the sports programs. All right, Bud.
I'd like to second every comment you made, Gordon. Debbie and Angie, to the city council, comments you made about the senior, Mr. Hucks, and that he was a stalwart of our neighborhood, okay? I'd also like to welcome Shannon Martin back to the school board, and welcome Michael DeBro to the school board, and thank the people at home for paying attention to the city government. All of you need to do that, okay? It's extremely important. Randy made some very good comments a few minutes ago, and that happens in the city of Poquoson, which I continue to think, that is the best city in the state of Virginia, okay? Probably the best city in the United States, okay? And this city council and Randy and his staff work well together, and I think we do as much as we possibly can for the citizens of Poquoson. That's what they ask us to do. And,
Oh, it's okay. Angie?
I just, first of all, I want to thank Randy for taking the time to help explain the docket tonight, appropriations that we had on the table, projects going on in the city. But I make note every time that you speak and you say, watch the meetings. That's something that I do diligently, is watch these meetings, because it is just fascinating to learn everything that's going on in the city. I really look forward to working with city staff. I look forward to working with Debbie Bunting. Welcome. Police chief, fire chief. Don't leave without me talking to you, because I have so many boxes of Girl Scout cookies that are designated for first responders. You might be swimming in Girl Scout cookies, but I have more to give. And as we see here, under the new business, there are all these resolutions for appointments, boards and commissions. If you have a desire to serve your city, there are lots of opportunities to do that through boards, commissions, civic organizations, and we have a great town to be able to participate in. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. It's good.
David?
Thank you, Gordon, and thank you, Councilman Southall, for the well wishes and condolences on behalf of council and staff. Much appreciated, and my family certainly thanks the good Lord every day for my father, mother, and the fine example that they set for us. To capitalize on earlier comments, our staff never ceases to amaze me with all the things that they do. In particular tonight, I'd like to comment on the effective grant writing that our staff does. And tonight's a shining example of the grant writing that saved the taxpayers $162,000. And I know the fire department and other city departments are very, very adept at writing those grants. So thank you very much for that. Also, on Memorial Day, I had the privilege and pleasure of attending another Memorial Day service put on by the American Legion Highway Memorial Post 273. Thank you for their efforts. And one thing that struck me in particular this year, the post commander, Marcus Doolin, read down the list of other civic organizations that assist the American Legion in putting on the Memorial Day ceremony. And I think that speaks to the caliber of civic organizations and people we have in the city. These separate civic organizations, they are separate, but rather than competing with each other, they work together with each other for the greater good of the citizens of this community. So thanks so much to all involved, as well as the police and fire departments for the support that they provide every year for that ceremony as well. And also, lastly, I'd like to comment on the public works staff that maintain our ditches. We have a pretty large drainage ditch that flows beside and behind our yard. And a week before last, the crew of professionals came through with weed eaters one day and rakes and shovels the next day. And when they got finished, this drainage ditch looked magnificent. And I'm sure that not only does it look great, it'll actually function very well. And I know from doing similar work personally, it's nothing glamorous about it, but it's very, very necessary, and it's much appreciated. So Randy, if you could pass that along to Director Anderson and staff, I certainly appreciate it. And that's all I have tonight. Thank
All right,
you.
bud.
Thank you, Gordon.
Okay, Debbie?
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be back on council once again, and I want to thank everyone for the well wishes. And I do look forward to working with all of the council members and Angie. We're the newbies. She's actually the newest. I'm next to the newest. They keep reminding us of that. Also, I want to say how I think it's a privilege to work with Councilman Freeman, Vice Mayor Freeman, and Mayor Helsel again. I've served with them in the past, and very excited for the opportunity to work with them again. Excited to work with the city staff. I've known city staff members for a long time. This is a different capacity that I will be working with them, and I just want to thank Randy for his leadership and his staff and the excellent financial situation that the city is in, and the things that we're able to do for our citizens, those things that are very important as far as fire and rescue and, the police to hear those things and how things are going to be better for our citizen. It's really good to hear. I want to congratulate our graduates. We had a graduation this past week. Congratulate them as they go off on a new adventure, whether they be going to college or right into the workforce. Congratulating them. It's coming the end of the school year this week. We'll close out the school year. I want to wish all of the faculty and staff and the students a safe and restful summer that's coming up.
Thank you, Deb. Keith?
I had a couple things. 24th of June, Spark in the Park, hosted by Parks and Rec, starting about 5 o'clock, culminating with fireworks at the end of the day. 27th, just 3 days later, will be the mobile food pantry. 8:30 volunteers, Lions Club is hosting this one. Any assistance would be appreciated. Of course, the distribution goes from 10 o'clock until noon. And last thing, kind of put a bookend on things. I visited the high school on the 2nd of June to observe the traffic loop. Resource Officer Biggs has everyone trained. There were no backups on the odd road at all. It was just purely amazing. I was there at the beginning of the year, and of course chaos ensued, but he trained them up well, and they're doing really well. I understand Superintendent Tillett is planning an overpass next year. So.
That's it. All right. Okay, Kerry?
Yes.
Almost forgot you.
Very happy to welcome our new council person. Wanted to thank the high school for sending us graduation tickets and concur with Debbie's comments about a good program. Wanted to comment on or compliment Roads and Parks and Recs, our public service, about the sign and landscaping on our corner here. In addition to that, I think 65 miles of ditch that Councilman Hugs was talking about. The manager's comments on what's going on, again, I think that's because of the manager himself, and he deserves a lot of credit for how far the city has come in that length of time. And Councilman Hugs says, condolences on your father.
Thank you, Vice
That's
Mayor.
it, Mr. Mayor.
You know, one other thing I'd mention about the graduates. Boys baseball team actually graduated on the ball field.
Yeah.
And teams, I think it was both teams, as a matter of fact, you go to a military wedding, they use swords, these boys use bats. And it was really kind of neat, as they held the bats up, and these students walked through and got their diplomas on home plate. I thought that was kind of interesting. I've never seen that done before. All right, somebody have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All righty.
Second.
Motion made, second, we adjourn. Ms. Kim?
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
Councilwoman Bunting?
Aye.
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilwoman Emmett?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
We are adjourned. Thank you.